Welcome back to the channel. Imagine opening an old family album, flipping through a few forgotten pages, and discovering a tiny green postage stamp that could be worth far more than its original 4-cent face value. It sounds unbelievable, but that's exactly why collectors across the United States and around the world continue searching for rare George Washington stamps. Today, we're taking a close look at the famous 4-cent George Washington stamp, exploring its fascinating history, the features that determine its value, and why some examples have sold for hundreds, or even thousands, of dollars. Stay with me until the end because one small detail could make all the difference between a common stamp and an extraordinary collectible. The 4-cent George Washington stamp is one of the classic definitive stamps issued by the United States Post Office during the early 20th century. It features America's first president, George Washington, whose portrait has appeared on countless stamps because of his enduring place in American history. Millions of these stamps were printed for everyday mail, making them familiar to generations of Americans. At first glance, they all seem identical, but experienced collectors know that subtle differences in printing, paper, perforation, shade, and production methods can dramatically affect value. One of the reasons these stamps remain so popular is their beautiful engraved design. Unlike many modern stamps, these were produced using detailed line engraving that gives the portrait remarkable depth and sharpness. The rich green color, elegant oval frame, and classic typography make this stamp an icon of American philately. Even collectors who focus on modern issues often appreciate these older Washington stamps because they represent an important chapter in U.S. postal history. Now let's answer the question everyone is asking: how much is this stamp worth today? The truth is that there isn't one single value. A common used example with an ordinary cancellation usually sells for around 25 cents to $5. A well-centered copy with light cancellation and excellent eye appeal may sell for $10 to $50. Mint examples with original gum can be worth significantly more, especially if they have never been hinged. However, the story becomes much more exciting when we talk about rare varieties. Certain printings, unusual papers, scarce perforation combinations, or production errors have attracted tremendous interest from collectors. Some certified examples have sold for hundreds or even several $1,000s, proving that not every 4-cent stamp is created equal. So how can you tell whether your stamp is ordinary or potentially valuable? The first thing experts examine is centering. A perfectly centered design with even white margins is always more desirable than one that is off-center. Next comes the condition of the perforations. Missing or damaged perforation teeth can significantly reduce value. Collectors also inspect the stamp for tears, creases, stains, thin spots, fading, or repairs. Even tiny flaws can make a noticeable difference in price. Finally, specialists identify the exact variety by measuring perforations, checking the paper type, looking for watermarks, and comparing printing characteristics with professional stamp catalogs. Two stamps that appear almost identical to the naked eye may actually have vastly different values. Another factor that influences price is rarity. While millions of George Washington stamps were printed, not every printing survived in equal numbers. Some issues were used heavily and discarded, while others were produced in much smaller quantities. Rare printings, unusual shades, experimental papers, and recognized production varieties have become highly desirable among serious collectors. Because demand for these scarce examples remains strong, auction prices for certified specimens continue to impress collectors year after year. Authentication is another critical step. Many valuable stamps are submitted to professional expertising services before they are sold. These organizations verify authenticity, identify the exact catalog number, and confirm whether a stamp has been altered or repaired. A certified stamp usually attracts greater buyer confidence and often commands a much higher selling price than an uncertified example. If you have inherited an old stamp collection from parents, grandparents, or relatives, don't assume the stamps are only sentimental keepsakes. Take your time to examine each one carefully. Use a magnifying glass, compare perforations, and photograph both the front and back of the stamp in high resolution. Sometimes the most valuable discoveries are hiding in collections that have remained untouched for decades. The popularity of stamp collecting has also grown online. Thousands of collectors participate in internet auctions, specialized marketplaces, and philatelic forums where rare United States stamps are bought and sold every week. High-grade examples with exceptional centering, vibrant color, and certified authenticity consistently attract competitive bidding from collectors worldwide. This continued demand helps preserve the value of classic American stamps for future generations. Although stories of million-dollar stamps capture headlines, it's important to understand that such prices are reserved for exceptionally rare and historically significant examples. Most 4-cent George Washington stamps are modestly priced, but identifying the correct variety is the key. What appears to be an ordinary stamp could turn out to be a scarce printing that collectors have been searching for. That's why knowledge is every collector's most valuable tool. Imagine finding one forgotten stamp in an old album that transforms an ordinary family collection into something truly special. That possibility is exactly what makes stamp collecting so exciting. Every stamp tells a story, not only about American history and postal service but also about the people who saved it, collected it, and passed it from one generation to the next. Before you dismiss an old George Washington stamp as just another piece of paper, remember that careful research can reveal hidden value. Check the condition, identify the variety, compare it with professional references, and if you believe you have something unusual, consider obtaining expert certification. The next great discovery could already be sitting in your collection. Next up, we're taking an in-depth look at the famous 2-cent George Washington stamp, exploring its history, the features that collectors look for, and the market values that continue to surprise people in 2026. Make sure you watch until the end because one tiny detail could completely change the value of a stamp that looks almost identical to every other copy. The stamp you see here features George Washington, the first president of the United States and one of the most recognizable figures in American history. His portrait has appeared on more U.S. stamps than any other individual because of his importance to the nation's founding. This beautiful green 2-cent definitive stamp was produced during a period when engraved stamps represented the highest standards of printing craftsmanship. Every fine line, every engraved shadow, and every tiny detail was carefully created by skilled engravers at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Even after more than 100 years, these stamps remain admired for their beauty and historical significance. During the early 20th century, the 2-cent denomination became one of the most commonly used postage rates in the United States. Millions upon millions of letters carried these stamps across the country every single year. Because so many were printed, most surviving examples are relatively common. However, experienced collectors know that not every 2-cent Washington stamp is the same. Different printings, different papers, different perforation measurements, and even slight changes in color can transform an ordinary-looking stamp into a highly collectible rarity. Now let's answer the biggest question everyone is asking: how much is this stamp worth today? The answer depends entirely on which variety you own. A common used example with average centering and a standard postmark generally sells for around 25 cents to $5. A well-preserved used copy with excellent centering may be worth $10 to $50. Algoo. Mint examples with original gum often command $50 to several $100s, depending on condition and issue. But this is where things become truly exciting. Certain rare printings, scarce perforation varieties, special paper types, production errors, and certified examples have sold for hundreds, thousands, and occasionally even tens of thousands of dollars in major stamp auctions. These exceptional stamps are the reason collectors continue searching through old albums, inherited collections, and forgotten family boxes every single day. So, what separates an ordinary stamp from a valuable one? The first thing professional collectors examine is centering. If the design is perfectly centered with wide, even margins on all four sides, collectors are willing to pay significantly more. Next comes the condition of the perforations. Every perforation tooth should be complete and undamaged. Missing teeth, tears, creases, stains, thinning, fading, or repairs can greatly reduce value. The quality of the original color also plays an important role. Bright, fresh green examples are generally more desirable than faded copies. Professional philatelists also study characteristics that cannot easily be seen with the naked eye. They measure the perforation gauge using specialized tools. They examine the paper under magnification. They determine whether the stamp contains a watermark. They compare engraved details against professional stamp catalogs. Two stamps that appear completely identical to beginners may actually belong to entirely different printings with dramatically different market values. That is why proper identification is one of the most important steps in stamp collecting. Another factor influencing value is rarity. While billions of stamps have been printed throughout American postal history, only a small percentage become genuinely scarce. Some issues were printed in relatively limited quantities. Others were used heavily and very few survived in excellent condition. Certain production errors, inverted designs, unusual shades, double impressions, or missing colors have become legendary among collectors and routinely attract competitive bidding whenever they appear at auction. Authentication is equally important. Before spending significant money, experienced buyers often require professional certification. Independent expertising organizations examine the stamp carefully, confirm that it is genuine, identify its exact catalog number, and determine whether any hidden repairs or alterations exist. Certified examples usually sell more easily and often achieve higher prices because buyers have confidence in their authenticity. If you've inherited an old stamp album from your parents or grandparents, never assume that every stamp inside is only worth its face value. Take high-quality photographs of both the front and the back. Compare your stamp with professional reference catalogs. Check the perforations carefully. Study the paper and printing details. Even if 99 stamps are common, the 100th stamp could be an overlooked rarity that transforms the entire collection. The market for classic United States stamps continues to attract collectors around the world. Online auctions, international stamp exhibitions, and specialized dealers regularly buy and sell historic American postage stamps. Collectors are always searching for examples with exceptional centering, brilliant color, flawless condition, and certified authenticity. Because supply for the finest examples remains limited while demand continues to grow, premium quality specimens often maintain strong market values year after year. Although stories about million-dollar stamps make exciting headlines, it's important to remember that such prices are reserved for the rarest and most historically significant pieces. Most 2-cent George Washington stamps are affordable collectibles that introduce new enthusiasts to the fascinating world of philately. Nevertheless, every collection deserves careful examination because hidden treasures are still being discovered today. Imagine opening an old family album that hasn't been touched for decades and finding a stamp that experts identify as a rare variety worth thousands of dollars. It has happened before, and it could happen again. That's exactly why collectors never stop looking. Every stamp carries history, and every collection has the potential to reveal an extraordinary surprise. So before you overlook that old green 2-cent George Washington stamp, take a closer look. Study its condition. Identify its variety. Learn its history. And if you believe you've found something unusual, consider having it professionally authenticated. Your next great discovery could already be sitting inside a forgotten album on your bookshelf. Next up, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most famous commemorative stamps in U.S. history, the 1932 George Washington Bicentennial 3-cent stamp. We'll uncover its fascinating history, explain what makes certain copies valuable, reveal today's collector market prices, and show you exactly what to look for before selling or adding one to your collection. Stay until the end, because one small detail could completely change the value of your stamp. The stamp shown here is the 3-cent George Washington Bicentennial issue, released in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, which occurred on February 22, 1732. Unlike ordinary definitive stamps that were produced mainly for everyday mail, this commemorative issue honored one of the greatest figures in American history. Washington was not only the first president of the United States but also the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army during the American Revolution. His leadership helped shape the nation, making him one of the most celebrated individuals ever featured on U.S. postage stamps. One of the most striking features of this stamp is its beautiful purple engraving, combined with Washington wearing his famous military hat. The years 1732 and 1932 appear on both sides of the portrait, symbolizing 2 centuries since his birth. The engraved artwork is remarkably detailed, displaying the extraordinary craftsmanship of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Even today, collectors admire this issue for its artistic beauty, historical significance, and timeless design. Millions of these stamps were printed because they were intended for everyday postal use during the bicentennial celebration. Since so many were produced, most surviving examples are relatively affordable. However, this does not mean every copy has the same value. Condition, centering, gum quality, cancellation marks, and unusual printing varieties can make an enormous difference in today's collector market. Example with an ordinary postmark generally sells for around 25 cents to $3. A well-centered used copy in excellent condition may bring $5 to $20. Mint never-hinged examples with original gum often sell between $20 and $150, depending on quality and grading. Professionally graded gem quality examples can sell for several $100s, while rare plate blocks, unusual production varieties, or certified error stamps have reached thousands of dollars in specialized stamp auctions. Although most copies are common, exceptional examples remain highly desirable among advanced collectors. What exactly makes one stamp worth only a few dollars while another sells for hundreds or even thousands? The first factor is centering. Collectors pay premium prices for stamps with perfectly balanced white margins surrounding the design. Poorly centered stamps are much more common and usually sell for less. Next comes condition. A valuable stamp should have sharp perforations, bright original color, no tears, no creases, no stains, no thinning, and no repairs. Even the smallest flaw can significantly reduce market value. Collectors also look carefully at the original gum on mint stamps. A stamp that has never been hinged and still retains flawless original gum is much scarcer than one with hinge marks or damaged gum. Professional grading companies evaluate these characteristics using strict standards, assigning numerical grades that often influence selling prices dramatically. Another exciting aspect of stamp collecting is the possibility of discovering rare production varieties. Printing errors, color shifts, unusual perforation combinations, double impressions, or other manufacturing anomalies can turn an ordinary-looking stamp into a prized collectible. These varieties are uncommon, but when discovered and authenticated, they often attract strong competition from collectors around the world. Authentication plays an important role in today's stamp market. Professional expertising organizations carefully examine valuable stamps to confirm authenticity, identify the correct catalog number, and detect repairs or alterations. Certified stamps usually command higher prices because buyers know exactly what they are purchasing. For expensive stamps, certification can make a significant difference in auction results. If you've inherited an old stamp collection from parents or grandparents, never assume that every stamp is ordinary. Take clear, high-resolution photographs of both the front and the back. Compare your stamp with recognized stamp catalogs. Examine the perforations carefully, inspect the color under good lighting, and if something appears unusual, consider having it professionally authenticated. Many remarkable discoveries have been made in collections that remained untouched for decades. The market for classic United States commemorative stamps continues to grow as collectors seek historically important issues in exceptional condition. Online auctions, philatelic exhibitions, and specialized stamp dealers regularly handle George Washington Bicentennial stamps. High-grade certified examples consistently attract strong interest because collectors appreciate both their beauty and their connection to one of America's greatest historical figures. While stories of million-dollar stamps capture headlines, it's important to remember that those extraordinary prices are reserved for the rarest and most famous philatelic treasures. Most 1932 George Washington 3-cent bicentennial stamps remain affordable, making them an excellent starting point for new collectors. At the same time, exceptional condition and rare varieties prove that even a common-looking stamp can become surprisingly valuable. Imagine opening an old envelope and discovering a perfectly preserved 1932 Washington stamp that experts identify as a rare variety. That possibility continues to inspire collectors across the United States and around the world. Every stamp tells a story, not only about postal history but also about the people who saved it, treasured it, and passed it from one generation to the next. Before you dismiss an old 3-cent George Washington stamp as just another piece of paper, take a closer look. Study its condition, identify its variety, compare it with professional references, and if you believe you found something unusual, seek expert certification. Your next hidden treasure may already be waiting inside an old family album. Next up, we'll uncover its fascinating history, explain why collectors love it, reveal its current market value in 2026, and show you the important details that can turn an ordinary stamp into an extraordinary treasure. Be sure to stay until the end because one small feature could completely change the value of your stamp. The stamp shown here features George Washington, the first president of the United States and one of the most respected figures in American history. His portrait has appeared on countless U.S. postage stamps because he symbolizes the birth of the nation. The elegant green engraving reflects the incredible craftsmanship of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing during the early 20th century. Every line, shadow, and detail was engraved by skilled artists, giving these classic stamps a timeless appearance that modern printing methods rarely match. The 3-cent denomination played an important role in American postal history. For many years, 3 cents was the standard first-class letter rate in the United States. Because of this, millions of these stamps were printed and used on everyday mail. Letters carrying these stamps traveled to every corner of the country, making them a familiar sight for generations of Americans. Today, these stamps serve as small but important pieces of American history that connect collectors with the nation's postal heritage. Now let's answer the question that brings most people to this video. How much is a 3-cent George Washington stamp worth today? The answer depends entirely on the exact issue, condition, and variety. A common used example with an ordinary cancellation typically sells for around 25 cents to $5. A well-centered used stamp with bright color may be worth $10 to $40. Mint examples with original gum often sell between $25 and $200, depending on quality and rarity. However, professionally graded examples in exceptional condition can sell for hundreds or even several $1,000s. Rare printing errors. Unusual perforations, scarce paper types, or certified varieties have achieved impressive prices at specialized stamp auctions. Many beginners wonder why two stamps that look almost identical can have completely different values. The answer lies in the details. Professional collectors carefully examine centering, making sure the design sits evenly within the perforated margins. Better centering almost always means a higher value. They also inspect the perforations, checking for missing teeth, tears, or damage. Bright original color, sharp engraving, and clean paper all increase collector interest. Even tiny flaws such as creases, stains, thinning, or repaired areas can reduce the stamp's value significantly. Experts also identify the exact variety using specialized tools. They measure the perforation gauge, examine the paper under magnification, check for watermarks, and compare engraved details with professional stamp catalogs. Although two stamps may appear identical to the naked eye, they may belong to completely different printings with dramatically different market values. This is why accurate identification is one of the most important parts of stamp collecting. Another factor that makes these stamps exciting is the possibility of finding rare varieties or printing errors. During production, occasional mistakes occurred, including unusual perforations, color shifts, double impressions, or other printing anomalies. These varieties are uncommon, but when discovered and professionally authenticated, they often become highly desirable among advanced collectors and can sell for substantial amounts. Professional authentication is also extremely important. Before spending significant money, serious collectors often require certification from recognized philatelic experts. These organizations verify that the stamp is genuine, identify its exact catalog number, and determine whether any repairs or alterations are present. Certified examples generally command stronger prices because buyers can purchase with confidence. If you've inherited an old stamp album from parents or grandparents, don't assume every stamp is ordinary. Carefully examine each one under good lighting. Take clear photographs of both the front and the back. Compare your stamp with recognized stamp catalogs, and if you notice anything unusual, consider submitting it for professional evaluation. Many valuable discoveries have been made in collections that remained untouched for decades.